This narration was written by author Stacy Natzel. In it, she shares a spiritual perspective on the growing division in our world, division often fueled by fear, rejection, and misunderstanding. Through personal reflection and divine insight, she invites us to seek healing, not by choosing sides, but by finding unity in the sacred middle ground. Bridging the Divide, a spiritual perspective of our time. We are living in a time when moral lines feel blurred, truth is treated as subjective, and personal identity is often placed above divinity. What once was considered self-serving or even immoral is now celebrated, amplified by a cultural shift that prioritizes individual experience over shared spiritual wisdom. This identity-driven culture often champions self over sacrifice and emotions over grounded universal values. And religious doctrine, holding judgment, fuels this division even further. One of the more sensitive aspects of this cultural shift involves gender identity. The topic has become highly polarized and at times weaponized, creating confusion, especially among the younger generation. While in meditation, I asked God, "How do you feel about gender identity?" What I received wasn't condemnation, but clarity. It doesn't exist in the way you think it does. God explained that this concept, though rooted in a desire to express uniqueness, has instead become a burden, one that has weighed on our children, limiting their ability to grow freely. Rather than simply allowing children to explore and imagine without pressure, we've begun asking them to label their identity before they've had time to develop. This creates confusion and places expectations on their spirit before it has time to unfold naturally. In doing so, we may unknowingly be forcing them into belief systems that divide humanity rather than unite it. God reminded me that we are all made of energy, and in divine nature, God is both masculine and feminine. God showed me that gender doesn't exist in the way we've been taught to perceive it. Some men carry a more feminine frequency, and some women express more masculine energy. This isn't wrong or unnatural. It's the flow of divine balance. This energy is not a fixed label, but an exchange. We're naturally drawn to people based on spiritual frequency, and if we can stop overcomplicating this connection, perhaps the anger and tension will give way to kindness and understanding. When we stop trying to define it by human terms and instead feel it, we begin to see each other more clearly and love more freely. In many ways, the identity-driven culture we see today has grown out of a genuine longing to be seen, to be valued, to feel empowered in a world that often overlooks the individual. This movement is not born from evil, but from human hurt. It teaches that your truth is your identity, your feelings are your compass, and validation is your healing. And while those messages speak to pain that deserves compassion, God showed me something deeper. Healing doesn't come from being affirmed by the world, but by remembering who you are in spirit. Where culture says, "Be whatever you feel," Spirit says, "You are already whole. Come back to me." As more people awaken spiritually, many are realigning with the heart of what Jesus taught: love, humility, and integrity. Though culture and language have changed, the core lessons remain. What Scripture once called sin, many now recognize as low vibrations, patterns like pride, envy, wrath, greed, and laziness. These energies haven't vanished. They've simply taken new shapes, often masked as liberation or empowerment. But God reminded me that true wholeness comes from spiritual alignment and a balanced mind, body, and soul. In meditation, I saw how division isn't just religious, it's cultural. Some feel hurt by religious systems that fail to see them fully, while others feel their values are being challenged by a world that moves too quickly. When we feel misunderstood, we naturally seek labels to feel seen, but sometimes those labels become armor instead of bridges. God showed me that many souls currently incarnating on Earth have lived lives on other planets, places where gender and form are different or don't exist at all. When these souls arrive on Earth, they feel lost and confused. Though the veil of forgetting is thick, their longing to be understood is real. But when they're met with harsh doctrine or rejection, anger can take root. This is part of why some aspects of identity-driven culture have become reactive and fueled by pain. Envy often disguises itself in cries for justice, but as God showed me, envy clouds gratitude. When we compare ourselves to others or harbor bitterness toward their blessings, we miss the beauty of our own path. Jesus modeled contentment and joy in others' success. Through spiritual practice, we've learned that gratitude and dedication bring abundance, not resentment. Wrath in today's world often takes the shape of public outrage, call-outs, or the need to correct perceived wrongs. But in meditation, God helped me see that beneath that anger is often deep pain that hasn't been heard or healed. Anger can be a signal, a cry for justice or recognition, and while it's human to feel it, we aren't meant to live in it. Jesus responded to hatred with forgiveness. When we pause before reacting, we create space for grace to enter. Wrath builds walls, but forgiveness builds bridges that heal and unite. Laziness, spiritually, is often misunderstood. It can look like avoidance, but is sometimes rooted in weariness or disconnection from purpose. God has shown me that rest is sacred, but when stillness becomes stagnation, we are gently called back into motion. Transformation doesn't come from force. It unfolds one small, grace-filled step at a time. Greed in today's world can sometimes take the form of entitlement, rooted not in malice, but in deep feelings of lack and injustice. During meditation, God showed me that when we believe we are always owed something, we may be looking outward for fulfillment that can only come from within. It's not wrong to want a better life, but true abundance begins with alignment, not resentment. Jesus demonstrated that richness of spirit matters more than material gain. When we trust in divine timing and focus on what we can give rather than what we lack, we open the door to peace and provision. Lust has been rebranded as freedom. Culture teaches us to explore every desire and define ourselves by them. But in meditation, I was shown that when we walk in spirit, we are less drawn to fleeting gratification and more connected to divine truth. Love is love, but lust, unchecked, leads to emptiness. God's love is unconditional, and through free will, we are always invited to return to light. Gluttony isn't only about food, it's about overconsumption of anything without restraint. God showed me the freedom found in self-discipline. Jesus taught the power of fasting and prayer as a path to clarity. In a world of excess, restraint can be revolutionary. Jesus revealed another way, a path of humility, gratitude, kindness, and sacrifice. While religion has at times painted a fearful image of God, those of us who have encountered God in spirit know that God is pure love. God does not send people to hell and does not judge who we love based on gender. God welcomes all with open arms and invites us to rise above division and walk in truth. We are living in a time of great polarization. Religious rules and cultural ideologies are clashing, but we don't have to pick sides. We can find a sacred middle. We can choose to be the bridge. To reach unity, we must release the need to demand labels, rules, or conformity to religious doctrine. Instead, we can meet each other with humility, vulnerability, and compassion. The more we lead with integrity and grace, the more we create space for healing. We influence not through judgment, but through compassion. As we walk in kindness and model integrity, we plant seeds of unity. The time of forcing ideas is ending. Now is the time for release, letting go of rigid beliefs and flowing with grace. Let us become people who welcome differences without fear and who honor God's guidance without condemnation. This is the energy of the new earth: understanding, surrender, and peace. Not every path will look the same. Not every truth will be shared, and that's okay. We are here in the middle for a reason. So let us be the bridge that heals the cracks in our world.